can't say that. You can't say bomb in an airport.
That.
Wounding your best friend.
Who needs this? I don't need it. Why would I rent to a church?
Buy large firecrackers.
Got a job working at Discount Auto Parts.
We're gonna have a wrestling
Jamie,
match.
you were one of the wrestlers.
Things were spinning a little bit last year.
Yeah. So here we are. We are 5 years old, and we're outgrowing our space that we have. So we're going to kind of share with you guys what happened between 2010 and 2015, because those were some crazy days. Like those were
Outgrowing our skill base.
those were like,
too.
oh yeah, way outgrowing skill base and way outgrowing our space, but also our own capacities.
Yeah.
But still just willy-nilly in it, winging it as we went. And I think that the one thing that we felt like we were really good at, we were like, man, this whole rehab thing, this whole serving people, this is who we are. We're good at this. Even though, Jamie, you and I we knew enough about construction to get us in serious trouble. But we did have people who were general contractors in our church, like Bob Thorne, Chris Spivey. Like these people start coming in at that time, and we're like, Kevin Scully. And we're like, these guys can help us. Yeah. And so we started saying, let's make rehabs part of our DNA.
So like every Mother's Day, right?
Yeah. Mother's Day. We wanted to find a single mom or a single grandmother who was literally trying to raise their kids or their grandkids, and we wanted to serve them. We had a criterion. You had to own your own home, and we would come in and do as much as we could do.
In like 3 days.
We always said it was going to be 3 days.
Always say the 3 days.
The weekend before.
I think
you
that
were there
literally
the weekend
only
after.
after Virginia, though, we had narrowed it down to where in about 2 weeks we could probably get the projects pretty much done. But it was still like a 24/7 deal.
Yes. And you'd have just cycles of volunteers.
Cycles.
You know.
I think Ruby's house, I was looking at pictures of Miss Ruby's house. The last one we did on...
Was that the one where you peeled off the ceiling?
And it was caught on fire, and we had realized it caught on fire because it was
and you're
a
like,
drop
put the ceiling back. Yeah.
Yeah. Then Keena's house, where the back of the house started falling off when we started.
We could talk a whole day on all the crazy things of these houses.
But it brought different people with different skill sets. It didn't matter.
People with a heart to serve.
Yeah,
and then they
we're
wanted
like,
to be a part.
You don't have to know how to do anything.
Yeah.
Just come. We'll teach you.
It was good. Good days.
And man, it was fun to be the church that just did it.
And then we were like wanting to still do outreach.
Yeah.
So we thought of, what if we took our church to a park? And so that kind of birthed an idea.
What did we do, though? We said, what if we didn't have church in our building on Easter?
Yeah.
This was like revolutionary at the time.
The high holy day
Yeah.
of every church is like people want them, come to our building, come to our building. And we said, what if we didn't?
So
what if we didn't do church there?
We started a little campaign, a little marketing scheme, and we called it Easter is Near. And it was beautiful, but it was so hot. We were like, people showed up in their Easter best and suits, and they were sweating.
Yep.
And we're like, never again. So then we started the next year, Christmas is near.
Christmas is a whole lot better time of year.
Never again on a Sunday morning.
Do you know that's
so hot.
It was in that season that Jim Jackson, who now is a huge part of our missions organization in the Dominican, actually, I remember him building this contraption so that we could drop Easter eggs.
That was a big thing. Everybody was dropping eggs.
We were dropping eggs, but they wouldn't let us do a helicopter in downtown Tampa, so we had a crane. We had a crane from Steps Towing.
Which became a whole thing.
And we dropped 10,000 Easter eggs. So we had like a 10,000 Easter egg drop. And Jim Jackson wired this whole thing up. As only Jimmy could do. Jimmy, love you.
But it was awesome.
It was
and we were
incredible.
praying for 5,000 people.
Yeah.
Like, we got to do this. And then I set up counters at the gates.
Yeah.
Anybody coming in, and sure enough, I was like, and pull 6,500.
Yeah. And I remember
It was just like that too.
I remember thinking that the next week we'd be running 1,000 people.
Yeah.
I did.
I think we had meetings to prepare.
We did.
What are we going to do
What are we
with
gonna
all
do?
these kids that are going to come?
And guys,
and all of
let
this?
me just tell you this. If there's a church planter watching this, sometimes that doesn't happen. And it doesn't make you a failure.
Yep.
I've had to learn that because,
That's right.
guys, that's hard for me to learn. That was really hard for me to learn because sometimes God has you do something for a season and for a reason, and it's not yours. It's just His. And it was still great. I still loved having those thousands of people come. It was a lot of fun. And we did see people come to our church because of that. The residual effect was there, but it wasn't like the exponential effect that we thought it was going to be. And
when you go to these conferences, sorry, babe,
No,
go
I
ahead.
was just to say, and I'm sure there's still people talking about it, right? Potentially they're not here with us, not like at Relevant, but there's people talking about that event, right? And that there was an impact, right? There usually is some sort of small seed that happens that we just may not ever hear about, but it was an amazing day.
And the funny thing about being in Tampa and in Ybor and with that young demographic that we had, so transient, so moving, and they would be here for a season and then they'd get a job change in another city or get married and move home and start having a kid. Oh man, we just had so many people going through. It was a lot. And it was great. And we know a lot of people across
here we are.
the
Here
nation.
we are. Of the people that started the church, there's 4 left.
Yeah, that are here local.
That are here locally.
Yeah.
Like we've had people just move away and
maybe
different
20
things.
that were in the first year. that
Yeah,
are still
Tim
around.
and Lisa,
Yep.
they were here
Right.
from day one.
Yep.
Tom and Don.
Tom and Dawn
Yep.
Wilson, still here
Yeah.
from day one.
Yeah.
So like there are a lot of people who remember those days, but like the 4 of us, like we sitting around doing this, we don't do this that often, but when we do, it's like,
We could
wow.
sit here for days.
Yeah. Well, and I
Yeah.
think what's key about that, and to me it's a learning lesson that I got to learn on the outside of ministry, is that if you build your life on numbers, if you build, and there are plenty of churches, plenty of organizations where your value comes from your numbers. And the reality is that what happens when your numbers aren't there anymore, right? And even moreover, what happens when you become intoxicated by your own numbers and your own success? Because then at that point, you verbally say that it's God's credit. But at the end of the day, because you're such a good, faithful servant, it's really about yourself. And so to me, one of the things I learned post-ministry was that you can't build, and even in my real estate life, don't build your ego or your value based on last year's numbers or your numbers this year, because at some point your numbers are going to come up and it's not.
Yeah.
And
It's not gonna be what you thought it was going to
who
be.
you are to God is irrelevant to what that stuff is you do for Him.
That's solid. Carly, what do you remember in that second phase of 5 years that was like, whoa, I can't believe we did that?
Well, I do. There was one Sunday that we decided we were going to do spontaneous baptisms. Paul decided. The rest of the staff said,
No one else did.
No way.
No way.
That-
You're
you know,
insane.
I just realized that was on the heels of
Yes.
it started. Easter is Near started with the series called Unexpected. And we were talking about all the unexpected things that happened in Scripture. And I didn't realize it until like I happened upon some pictures from Easter is Near and saw Unexpected. And I went, we did that. We launched the series on Easter. And it was the end of that series that we did
the spontaneous
crazy spontaneous baptisms.
And
Like, so talk about that, because I think we robbed the idea from somebody, didn't
Stephen
we?
Furtick.
Okay.
Buddy, we stole that from you. Absolutely.
well, Paul ran with it and got the staff on
Carl and I
board,
thought he was
sort of.
nuts. Yeah.
But I vividly remember, like, we ran out of clothes. Yeah. Like, Julie and Darren went to the store because we were like, we need more in between services because we need more clothing.
I'm pretty sure our staff said, Paul, we'll get enough clothes for like 25 people. I think that'll be it. Do you guys? I know the number.
I don't remember.
Do you remember
I
the
don't
number?
know the
I don't
number.
remember.
I just know that we had to buy more stuff.
I was
because
wrong,
it
so I don't want to
was-
remember the number.
53 people.
Isn't that
Wow.
insane?
That's crazy.
That's
And-
crazy.
Do you remember the first person that got baptized on that day?
I just blocked it all out.
Okay, so here's what was crazy. I was preaching on the Ethiopian eunuch because I was preaching in the book of Acts, and I talked about the fact that the Ethiopian eunuch wasn't planning on getting baptized, just like a lot of you aren't. And then Philip shows up, and he's reading the book of Isaiah, which is so random and so crazy. And he asked Philip, he goes, "Hey, how could I if nobody tells me?" And literally a guy, I'm in the middle of preaching in the first service, and a guy is sitting on the front row, and steps into the baptismal pool.
Oh, that's right.
Because I jump in first, and people were like
In the
shocked because
building.
I'm in full clothes. The pool, yeah, back in the day, like if you go to our church, we don't have a baptismal, like maybe the kind of church you grew up in. So we would buy a pool from Walmart until it started leaking so bad.
Just
and then we
cycle
throw,
them
then we
every
throw it
couple
away
years.
and we buy a new one.
Yeah.
But like this day, I said, guys, I'm gonna jump in the middle of my sermon into the pool so that people go, I wasn't planning on it either, and neither are you. And as soon as I jumped in, I was still preaching, and a guy comes walking over to the ladder and climbs
up
in.
in fully
And I
clothed.
was like,
Yeah.
he's fully clothed. He doesn't even go change clothes. He's fully clothed. And I said, what are you doing? And God said, this is how it starts.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm the guy you're talking about. I need to get baptized right now. And I'll never forget his face. I mean, I looked at his picture yesterday and I was just like, it was one of those things that, and Jamie, you're probably the only one that can attest to this, but I don't pull the God card out.
He does not. That's true.
I don't ever pull out, well, God told me this. I got a word from the
He
Lord.
was selling this so hard. I was like, oh, Lordy.
I told the guys, I said, guys, you know I don't do this.
Yeah.
I just feel like God said we got to do this.
Yeah.
And we were fighting as much as we could fight this. We thought, oh, nobody's going to do it. It was going to be embarrassing. And then sure enough, and we didn't support him. And then the Lord showed up.
But he showed up on me because I didn't believe that. I only believed him for like 25, which I said, okay, let's get 25.
At least 25
And then one of
shots.
our staff members at the time, Darren and Julia, ran to Walmart in between services
Yeah.
to actually go buy more
Get
stuff.
Because
That
we ran out.
That was a
So now
sweet day.
so that took place in our current building. To get us there, we were still in the Italian club. And there, if anybody was around or remember those days, the room was so echoey, we just made the music louder. It was the most painful experience ever. And so we were running 3 services, and you had the volunteers for each one, and then it was bleed over from, one service to the other, and you said, okay, we got to do something. So we started trying to hunt other places at Ybor. And we were really close to getting a lease with the mob. And I would actually lose sleep at night because I thought we wouldn't make our bills. And the Sopranos were big back then. And I lost sleep because I thought surely we were
They're
going
gonna
to
come
get
after me.
He watched every episode.
kiboshed, right?
Yeah.
So we finally, we don't do a deal with the mob. We do a deal with the Greek mob. And so this particular landlord that we approached owned a couple of things around town. And every conversation started the same way. I don't need this money. I don't need it. Why would I rent to a church? But yet somehow
What did he say about churches? Churches are what?
A terrible idea.
And he said, church is bad business.
Oh yeah, bad business.
That's bad business.
But yet somehow he kept meeting with me to figure this out.
And
Gold glasses.
when I signed the deal, the lease,
the
he
same
said the
thing.
same thing to me. He said, I don't know why I'm signing this. Churches are not good business. And I was like, well, we've been a pretty good business. He goes, not to me. And I was like, I said, I hope that we can prove you wrong. Getting into that space was,
Oh my
Jamie,
gosh.
I mean,
So,
think about
that was the
talk
biggest
about that part.
rehab.
The
What-
best.
What was the space before
Yeah.
we moved
yeah,
into
sorry.
the building?
It was a teen club,
It was a
which was
club.
really something else. I don't.
That had a
There
purple
was-
dance
Yes,
spot.
The longest continuous bar in Ybor City
the
at
length
the
of it.
time.
Yes. Yep.
That was continuous. It was 118 feet long.
So where the kids ministry is now, that's essentially where all the bar space was.
So
and then it was
pretty
a
much we
video
kept
game
in
place.
line with what we were doing at the Italian club. Put the kids right back in the bar again.
Yep.
It was like we had taken, maybe the Lord just prepared us through all the little house
Yeah, because we
Rehab.
did most of the work on that freaking thing.
I'd say
except for-
99.9%.
At the beginning, probably
Oh, the demo for sure. But we
we
demo
did
things well.
all the demo, and then we had to hire an electrician, Ernesto.
Ernesto. Yep. Still around.
Ernesto, the electrician.
Fire sprinklers.
And we had to redo the fire sprinklers, and then we had to move the bathrooms. That was the biggest thing. Because
Yes.
remember, the bathrooms used to be in the loading.
The loading dock.
There was an actual loading dock for a locomotive.
Actually, a warehouse supply, that and the Alfonso Tech across that's now a building, those were both owned by the same people. That was one of the original block buildings in Ybor.
Yes.
4-course block.
So there was a lot of work and a lot of hours and a lot of blood,
And-
sweat, and
And
tears.
and
And then the money ran out. We were just done.
So here's the best part. This is
Yeah,
the best part.
the fundraising.
Paul says this. He goes, oh, we can get the chairs in a minute. But Paul's like, I don't know how we're going to do
the
this.
chairs. Carl in the chairs.
Yeah.
Carl's not here to defend himself. That's even
This is
better.
the best part. Well, hold on for the tea. But Paul's like, I don't know how we're gonna do this. I said, Paul, we got no option. We just got to go forward. We got to figure it out. And then it was like, you don't have time to be anxious. It just is. And then sure enough, we keep pressing forward and it gets worse.
Well, we knew that it was going to cost us. We said it was going to cost us $100,000 or $150,000.
It was a round number.
And I'll never forget Hal Mayer. God bless him. I love Hal. But he said, Paul, you do know it's gonna cost you more.
Pastor.
It's gonna cost you more, and it's gonna take you longer than you ever thought it would.
And that was the story of our lives.
And I was like,
So while we're
not
learning.
me. I was like, not me, because we planned this. I know what it's gonna take. And they're like, okay.
Yep.
And
Sure enough,
it took
after
us,
the first contractor took advantage of us in the name of the Lord.
yeah. And then it cost us $250,000.
But we were
And-
about to get the CO.
Oh, Jamie, remember that? And the
You
fire
talking about the
marshal.
upstairs
Walked
with the
through
fire marshal.
upstairs and
Yeah.
mixed it.
It says-
You have to cut this out for egress. That's
yeah,
what I
basically
remember.
there's beams that are
Talk
up in the
about
upstairs
heart attack,
and you have
no
to be
money,
6 foot.
zero money, but God, and this
But
was
God.
the story of Relevant, but God would come through every time. How did he come through that time?
We still didn't have the money
Money.
because that was going to cost us $10,000 to cut those out. And
And
we
we
didn't
were at
have the money.
zero.
And you may not even remember this.
I'm
And I
trying to
had
remember what
somebody
happened.
who
Oh yeah.
I had somebody who called me and said, "Hey, my father-in-law
Yes. Yep. I remember now.
has a gift for the church."
And it was,
And he had already written it.
Yep.
And he said, he'll drop it off tomorrow. I was like, okay. And I remember that was a Friday. And Monday I got to the office and I opened the mail and there was a check for $10,000 in there written a week before we heard from the fire marshal.
Yep.
And it was like all those crazy things. Jamie, you forgot the angel from the first 5 years when we ran out of money doing Virginia's house. And there was an angel that showed up.
That's right, at baptism, right?
At
the beach
baptism.
baptism.
Had to be an
That's
angel
right,
unaware.
You were like, hey, we've ran out of all of our money, and he gave us the exact
He
amount
gave
of
us,
money we
we,
needed.
Same
and
thing.
we spent $15,000 doing Virginia's house,
Yep.
and we had no money left.
None.
None, zero.
Paul's like, I don't know
couldn't
how
buy a
we're gonna
soda, not a soda,
buy the staff.
not a bottle of
Pay
water,
their salaries.
nothing.
You were not even on
You weren't
staff
on
yet.
staff
And,
at
yeah,
that
you ain't
point.
no stuff. You was a
Yeah.
volunteer. She was best
Oh
volunteer
my
ever.
word! But that's the story of Relevant.
like,
how God
a guy showed up the next week and
Pursued.
he said, well, what do you need? And I said, I know we're backing up, but it's like these little nuggets.
That's what we would do. We would step out in faith and God provide.
Don't you remember me saying, the guy came up and said, what do you need? And I said, a building. He said, no. He said, well, I don't have one of those. And he said, well, what else do you need? I was like, well, we just emptied our savings account. We only had $15,000 in there, but we emptied it. He goes, I'll have you a check for it tomorrow. And you and I drove away
Sure.
and said, nice try.
Yeah.
And he showed up the next day.
Yep.
And I don't think he ever showed up again.
I don't know what it is.
I don't think he
No
did.
idea.
I still don't remember his name. I know that he showed up one Sunday. And God, I don't know if you believe in angels or not. I just know that God shows up when God needs to show up for his
Yeah.
church.
And he still does that today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
So the Carl and the chairs, these people waited for that story.
that's true. You got to, all right, go ahead and throw
I'll
it out
start.
there.
All right, so somebody designated the money. That's a good way to say it, right? And it was 10 grand, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
Something like round numbers.
Seven or 10 grand.
Yeah,
I don't
but
know.
it was
something.
such a good deal for chairs coming out of Atlanta.
They're going to be cushion chairs.
Cushion. Very
They
nice
were
cushions, yeah.
Comfortable.
And so Carl finds these people, and then we send a check. So this donor gives the money. Oh, it's so great. And then the chairs just don't come.
Well, we're waiting because we're going to move in.
Yeah.
And we're going to move into our new building, and we have not one chair.
and
no
and they're
chairs.
not answering
building.
no messages, no voicemails, nothing. They stopped responding to Carl's calls.
The only mistake that Carl ever made was he sent the money before we got the chairs.
Yes, he wired it.
Oh,
Remember, we didn't
We
use
were in
our
a
credit cards. The
hurry.
first time we never
Yeah.
used our credit
That's
cards.
right.
So lesson learned.
He wired it.
He
and,
didn't do anything else ever that was
but
wrong.
we still
ever.
hold it over his
Oh,
head.
absolutely.
Every
Golden
time
child.
we see him.
Yes.
If you see him on Sunday, you
God
should say
provided.
something.
So here's the
the
best part.
city, what? Those,
No, it
Whoa,
wasn't the
hold
city.
on, wait, you're
was the
giving God.
voter?
No.
It's the
It wasn't
Baptist.
the
Hold on,
city
wait.
at all. Go.
So I go back to the donor and I had to apologize. I'm sorry, we wasted your money. And this poor guy goes, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you, my money's cursed.
That's right.
Oh yes, I totally forgot that.
That's
So then
right.
I said,
It is
I don't know what to
I
do,
know.
but I know that our kids camp was at the Tampa Bay Baptist Conference Center,
Yeah.
and I had a relationship with Tom Biles.
Good dude.
Great
Yeah.
dude.
You
I said,
call up,
Tom, we don't have any chairs.
We're about
Can
to
we?
move in.
We're about to move in. Can we
need
borrow the
something to sit."
chairs?
Yeah.
And he goes, I think we have 150 of them, or yeah, I think 150
He said we
or
could
200.
borrow 'em,
He said we
right?
can borrow
For-
them. He said you can borrow them. He said, but I need them back in 6 weeks.
Oh, that's it. That's it.
6 weeks. And I was like, I think we'll be fine by then. And like we were like, we had
We
no
don't have any
idea.
money.
And literally 6 weeks later, he called back and said, you can just keep them.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
those were we had
We had
brown-
those for years.
It was
did it say?
supervisor of elections.
Yes, it was.
They had got them from somebody.
Yes,
and so at
supervisor
the back of relevance chairs in the early days, they were brown chairs. If you remember those
And
days.
we were trying to be so like cool and
we had
relevant.
Supervisor of elections.
I think
had
then we
the
painted everything
jankiest-
kind of tan and brown because that's the color of
janky
chairs. we
chairs.
had.
Man,
And
those were the
supervi-
days.
It was the first 5 years in this building. And Susie, you and Carly and a bunch of other people, we didn't have any money we had the money to build the kids' rooms,
Oh,
but we
to
didn't have any money to
decorate.
decorate the kids' rooms. And so we
I
all
found
decorated ourselves.
A foam cutting knife.
Yeah, with the big
And-
gears that said real kids.
And I started being creative with foam and making signs. And yeah,
that was how it was.
interesting.
And that
for at
last
least like 6 months to a year, I think we had those.
no,
out.
Susie, we had those for
Longer
5
than
years.
that.
I think it was
Until we
longer
bought the
than
building.
that.
We
Until
need
we
some
bought the
pictures
Did you,
of
building.
that.
did you do a thing? What's there
Oh,
now?
people painted too on
Yeah,
the
I was
walls.
gonna say, there
we
was
had some
paint.
artists in the
Yeah.
church, and they
We
painted
did all
really
of that.
neat
We did
murals.
not do the renovation of our kids' ministry till we bought
Yeah,
bought
but
the
that's
building.
what it looks like now, right?
Yes, the way
Was
it
that
looks
one?
The way
now.
it
Yeah,
looks
yeah, yeah.
now, but the initial.
The first
was-
5
That was
years, it
crazy.
looked very.
We had
very
our
least.
hands
It was.
all over that
It was
place.
fine.
Hold on, wait. Before we let these people go, tell them about the roof and Haas's old office.
So we were in a lease for the building for 5 years. The lease was a true triple net lease. That means that everything that you have, everything that goes on in the building, you have to pay for. So that means if there's a roof leak, you pay for it. If there's an air conditioning problem, you pay for it.
Right.
Everything. We were all in. But a new roof for that building was $90,000
That
for
was a
building
deal,
and
remember?
that was going to be a deal.
George.
And we were like, I'm not putting another $100,000 in. We already put $250,000 in that we
And
knew
we
we'd
don't
never
own
get
it.
back.
Right.
We
We were
didn't own
not
it.
owners. We were leasing.
So we said, we'll just keep patching it. And we had a guy in the church. This is how God worked. We had a roofer in the church who
Yes.
kept patching the roof.
Patching, and
But at
patching.
some point in time, it got so bad that literally, this was back when Dexter first came out, or maybe we called it Dexter after that. I don't remember. But Jamie is a creative engineer. That's a creative engineer. Because your title that Jamie wanted to be called was the pastor of innovation.
That would have been it.
Back in the day,
Yep.
he was going to be the pastor of innovation.
So it's
All right.
raining
So
into
what
the
happened?
building,
It's raining into the building. and
right
we-
in front of the power boxes.
Right. We had the power supplies that are upstairs. Like that room was the room where the roof was the worst.
You could see sky.
And so Jamie devised a innovative way to
Taken from
take
Dexter.
plastic,
Uh-huh.
visqueen, and it would run in and it would funnel into a
Dumpster, garbage can.
No, it wasn't a garbage can. You changed that. It was a garbage can, but you said, no, that won't work because we can't get it out of the building unless we carry the garbage can. So you said, it's going to funnel into a cooler that I can hook a water hose up
Oh,
to
yeah.
And then run the
hose
That's
all the
right,
way
out the back
outside.
door. Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
ran out the back door. And that it was like that at least a year, Jamie, don't you think?
Oh, at least.
Or maybe two.
Maybe even two, because that roof was so expensive.
It
and
was
you couldn't
too
keep
expensive.
patching it.
We couldn't afford to.
Yeah.
And
and
now
so-
it's even insulated. You have insulation up there.
So that was the first 5 years of leasing relevant church, the building that we're currently in right now.
And God grew.
And we grew
And
again
we had
exponentially.
groups, and we had life groups started during that time, and we had people that were meeting in homes and life change and children being born, and it was becoming less singles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And young
Yeah.
singles
We
and
started
more.
growing up.
Families.
Yeah.
They started
Yeah.
getting
Like
married and having
we
kids.
started making
So we really started
like family
then thinking,
ministry mattered then.
We're gonna have
Yeah.
to, because we kept growing, and we're like, we're gonna have to do something about our kids ministry. We can't keep using all this.
Yeah. I believe it was
Old
during
stuff.
that 10 years that we hired
Aaron.
Yep.
During that second phase, during that early 10 years. It was late. It was probably about year 8 or 9 is when we hired Aaron.
And a part-time youth guy.
Oh yeah, and Justin Wilson, I think, was in that
Mhm.
era, maybe.
Didn't we have
No,
Darren?
he's the
No,
little-
No,
as kids first.
Darren worked with youth too.
Yeah, he was kids and youth.
First.
Kids and youth, and
about a
then
year.
so Darren came first, and then Aaron
Yeah.
came after
Right.
Darren.
Yes, yes.
That's how it worked.
So that's 10 years, and we are rolling. Like, I honestly felt like at that time there was no stopping us. Like we were the cat's meow around town. And so man, I remember having our 10-year anniversary, and we were just like, man, God is doing so much cool stuff here, man. This is the greatest
killing it with the
greatest day ever. Like we were like, everything was good. And so then we get to year 11. 11 through 15 was something. And we'll get to that next.